stuff. Yeah. We tried to poison me?
Tried the jump pass and instead runs it in. He faked the jump pass and then ran it in. An improbable comeback that took a review on 4th and inches, and Vandy has the lead.
Ric Flair would love you. Wow! Ho!
Welcome back into The Door Report, episode 292 on a lovely fall/winter Tuesday evening, November 26th, 2024. I am Will Byrum, joined as always by my co-host, Trevor Hulan, and sitting in my lap, our producer, Phoebe. Here at The Door Report, we are presented by 615 Collectibles. If you're into sports cards or sports memorabilia, check out 615 Collectibles on eBay. Items include NFL team packs, individual cards, graded cards, and more. Shipping is always fast and free. That link is www.ebay.com/str/615collectibles, or just search 615 Collectibles in the eBay search bar. Trevor, we're back on episode 292. We also have a very special guest, a returning guest for the fourth time, joining us in segment 2 of this episode after the TDR cocktail break to discuss some football for Actually not, I was going to say for our last preview of the season, but actually not our last preview of the season. No matter what.
Crispy down.
That was crispy. No matter what, this will not be TDR's last Vanderbilt game preview of the season, because the Doors, just to remind everyone out there, even with 2 straight losses moving to 6-5, the Doors are still going bowling as Trevor bowls down the alley. But before we get into segment 2 and we recap the LSU game and we preview the Tennessee game, which is why 90 to 95% of people are listening to this, is to hear from the great Blake Fromang, former Vanderbilt offensive lineman great.
Are you sure it's not watch on YouTube to see our beautiful faces?
It might be that as well. I'm wearing the same hat for a lot of episodes in a row. This is my football season hat.
Yeah.
So it's not a lot of mix-up, but I can't mix it up.
I look like I'm lactating.
You are partially lactating.
I am. I need to hop on estrogen blockers.
But we have basketball to get to in segment 1. The Doors have been some busy boys since we last recorded, playing 3 games in the Charleston Classic, and they have an upcoming matchup against my alma mater, actually, next on the schedule. So we have some Vanderbilt basketball to get to, a game to recap, and a game to preview. But Trevor, it's Tennessee week. It's rivalry week across the country. We're going to do an early intro vibe check. How are you currently feeling during rivalry week?
Angry. There's nothing more in life that I hate more than the Tennessee Volunteers. Vanderbilt could lose every single game on their schedule, but if they went 1-11 and that one win came against Tennessee, it would be a successful football season in my eyes. I would trade the Alabama win that we had. I'm not playing. I would trade the Alabama win for this weekend. I hate the Tennessee Volunteers. So I'm kind of on edge. I'm a little bit on edge.
That's interesting. I thought there is truly nobody that could hate the Tennessee Volunteers more than I. Until I met Trevor and we started doing this podcast, until I met some of TDR Twitter as well, because normally I would agree with you on that statement. On almost any win, I would trade it to beat Tennessee in that last week of the season. However, this year, what I experienced, I wouldn't trade that Alabama game for any game against Tennessee ever. That Alabama game was truly the greatest sports experience of my life.
Until this weekend.
It will be incredible. I actually think I reached the mountaintop.
Yeah.
I reached the pure religious exorcism that I didn't think was possible. On the field, truly, I saw angels in the sky.
You could touch the face of God.
I touched the face of God that night. I saw God on the field of First Bank Stadium. against in that Alabama game. So, Trevor, I will disagree slightly.
Uh-huh.
I also wouldn't trade all wins. I would like bowl eligibility over just beating Tennessee. I will say that as well.
See, yeah.
But this is where we differ slightly because I can truly say it is generally the most important game on the schedule. But to me, even though they like to claim it, it is not my Super Bowl as a Vanderbilt fan. Tennessee is not my Super Bowl.
Oh, see,
my Super Bowl is getting to 6 wins and going to a bowl game.
Oh, I will be the first to say this 110% is my Super Bowl. Like, guys are like, ooh, balls rent-free in your head. Yeah, they absolutely live rent-free in my head. Every morning I wake up since I gained consciousness, every day I'm literally frazzled. I'm having a stroke on TDR. Ever since I gained consciousness, every day that I wake up, the first thing I think about is how much I hate the University of Tennessee. If Tennessee played a football game against Al-Qaeda, I would be Al-Qaeda's left tackle.
I will say, all that said, while I just gave the statement of I wouldn't trade it for the Alabama win, I like bowl eligibility more than just beating Tennessee. All that said, I always say there are 2 teams that are my favorite 2 teams every Saturday. Number one is the Vanderbilt Commodores. Number 2 is whoever is playing the Tennessee Volunteers.
It's biblical.
Those are my 2 favorite teams. That is a saying a lot of people use because it is true.
Yeah.
So we have a lot to get to. This is going to be a fired up episode 292. And once we get Blake joined in, you already know the amperage is going up a little bit. But before we get into football, we have some basketball to get to. And we do. And we still are in the intro right now. So before we get into everything that we just discussed, don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Door Report. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Our podcast is available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and Google Podcasts. And while you're at it, give our podcast 5 stars and a review on iTunes. It's now time for segment 1.
Coaching. We're making money.
No diggity, no doubt. I like to bang it up. This is fucking wonderful, Holmes. I'm loving how you sexualize the food. This is perfect for a shopping mall.
It's very sexy.
The only thing I'm seeing I'd like to put an amend on, perhaps a little more room here for the fixins. You know what I'm talking about?
Ooh, we're gonna have a lot of fixins.
We're gonna have so many fucking fixins up in this motherfucker.
Welcome back into segment 1 of episode 292 of The Door Report. Trevor, we have basketball to get to. The Vanderbilt Commodores were down in Charleston, South Carolina. Played 3 games in 4 days. They were runners-up in the Charleston Classic. Vanderbilt started out the tournament beating number 35 in the KenPom, Nevada, 73-71. Trevor, you pointed this out. I hadn't even looked at rankings or anything about that. That game will be a Q1 win.
That'll be a Q1 win.
Come into the season. That was a
nobody talks about that.
That was a huge statement win. People don't start talking about those Q1, Q2 wins until you get later in the season.
Yep.
But they start happening now.
Yeah, they do. Exactly.
So that was a huge win. That I know it got attention. And it's kind of what has elevated the expectations of this team. But that was a huge win.
Yeah. Like if this team is even close to being on the bubble come February, the argument for Vanderbilt being in is going to be, hey, they beat a Nevada team, a really, really good Nevada team that's probably going to win their conference. So come late February, that's going to be a huge sticking point for this basketball team. That was a great win. That was a really, really hard fought win by Vanderbilt.
Yeah, and I mean, Vanderbilt beat that Nevada team. I won't go through the box scores of all of these games. Some different guys had great performances in different games. But like in that Nevada game, Vanderbilt, it's not like they came out and shot 50% from 3. They shot 40%.
Yeah.
If this team can shoot 40% from 3, they can beat literally anyone in the country. Now, how often they're going to shoot 40%, the shooting has continued to be a struggle. At some point, I am confident this team is going to turn the corner when it comes to shooting. It hasn't happened yet. They've had some decent games, but it has not happened consistently. And that's ultimately why they lost to Drake.
Yeah.
There were other reasons, rebounding, other things we'll get to, but they just didn't shoot the ball well. And they have not shot the ball well all season. Fortunately, they are still 6-1 because after the Nevada game, Vanderbilt went on to beat Seton Hall 76-60 and then played Drake in the Sunday championship game after a day of rest, or as I like to call it, a nice day to get tight and sore for the Vanderbilt basketball team. They went on and kind of got dominated by Drake. A new head coach there brought some of his guys over, a lot of transfers. a center in the interior for Drake, a transfer from where was it? Wyoming.
Yes.
I'm going to butcher the name because they were pronouncing it differently than it's
They
spelled.
they pronounced it like 3 different ways.
Menyahu, something along those lines. Number 3.
I think it's Menyahu.
Whatever it is, he was dominant.
Yeah.
Absolutely dominated Jalen Carey and Devin McLaughlin inside. Vanderbilt couldn't stop him. 18 points, 11 rebounds, 3 blocks. He was everywhere.
Yeah.
Him and the shooting are ultimately why Vanderbilt lost that game. Also, you could say free throws. Drake shot 90% from the free throw line. Vanderbilt shot 75%. Vanderbilt didn't play its best ball.
Vanderbilt has some
Sunday
messy
championship.
turnovers too.
That was it was a slightly elevated level of basketball, maybe you could say, from Drake. They play a different style of basketball than Vanderbilt had run into. They're very deliberate under their new head coach, but Vanderbilt wasn't able to overcome that and adapt. Vanderbilt got outclassed by Drake, and it's simple as that. But Vanderbilt is sitting at 6-1. I think they are 79th, according to my data research. They are 79th in the current KenPom standings. Mm-hmm. They received some votes in the AP poll. I think they're sitting at 42nd if you go down the list.
That is correct.
Of others receiving votes. So Vanderbilt's starting to gain a little bit of national attention, a little bit of success. They have Tennessee Tech coming up, who I think sits at 330th in the KenPom.
331.
331. Either way, same, but different.
Big data guys.
But where do you sit with this team now? Are you still expecting them to be hopefully an NIT team? And if everything goes to plan, they can be a true bubble team? Where are you sitting with this team after what you saw during the Charleston Classic and before?
Yeah, so I'll go back to what we said. I believe it was last episode or the episode where we were previewing this team, and that my personal expectations for this team are to be on the cusp of an NIT berth. If they did that, or if they went like 500 and I just saw fun, and that's subjective, but I just saw fun offensive basketball, I would be very pleased. So I want to make the note that I'm not moving the goalpost at all. Like that's still my goalpost, but it's hard not to be impressed and sort of raise that level of expectation based on what you've seen so far. And so I'm not saying they will. But I think this could, like you said, be a bubble team. Like I think come late February, if they fix the shooting, if they fix the free throws, I think you're going to have a national conversation around Vanderbilt. Oh, are they a last 4 in? Where are they sitting at? You know, are they in the back of the Lenardi plane, or are they in the middle? Like where are they sitting? I think this could be a really, really fun basketball season. I've said that before. Gotta fix the free throw shooting though. And I'm with you. I think the shooting will come. But I'm even though they're not falling right now, I like to see guys just put up shots because that's not something we've seen under previous regimes. But so far, man, 6-1, already got a quad 1 win against Nevada. It's hard to point out like any real negatives with this Vanderbilt basketball team.
Yeah, I've got a couple. Number one, I would say Drake exposed the number one problem with this team, and that's going to be rebounding and getting dominated on the inside. That wasn't even close to a really good post. That was an okay group, non-major conference post, and Vanderbilt got dominated. I think you're going to see a lot of that in SEC play. My goalposts have not shifted one iota. Not even goalposts. My expectations, everything, are the exact same. I don't know where Vanderbilt fans have like lost their mind. It's expected, even if you're going to be a below average SEC team, to win most of your non-con games.
Oh, yeah.
We just got brainwashed by Jerry Stackhouse to think, you just lose to like 4 or 5 shitty teams in non-con, then you fuck your season before it ever starts. Yeah. That's not how it normally goes. This is a well-coached team, but just keep in mind, after January 4th, Vanderbilt only plays one team outside of the KenPom top 60 the rest of the season. So this is not because I think this team sucks, but I think people need to keep in mind how much lower this competition level is.
Yeah.
Drake is a good team. Drake, I think, right now is 80th in the KenPom. That would be the second lowest team in the entire SEC.
Yeah.
South Carolina is the only team lower, and they're 81st. So there's a lot of better competition on the horizon. I would say Vanderbilt fans, pump your brakes, and also it's not explosion, burn it all down time when Vanderbilt, and I say when Vanderbilt starts struggling in SEC play. It's not an if. This is a team that this is not a team that's going to be a guaranteed at-large bid in the NCAA tournament.
No.
I hope I'm wrong, and I hope they blow away my expectations, but nothing I've seen so far shows me this team is going to make any noise in the SEC. I think that potentially if they can get the shooting back on track and stop shooting 29.2% from three, which is 286th in the country, and opponents can stop shooting 37.7% from three, which is 313th in the country, I think this team can win some SEC games. I think they can be a 500 team. But being a 500 team is not being an NCAA tournament team.
No.
I just don't want people to now say, what the hell is Byington doing because they started 6-0 and then they're going to inevitably struggle once the competition gets better. It's kind of a little bit of what I'm seeing with Vanderbilt football, but not quite as much because people understand where the expectations were before the season. Is like if Vanderbilt closes out with 3 straight losses in football, it's not a failure.
It's a no.
Just because they looked better at the beginning of the season than you expected with an over-under win total of 2.5. Now that they close it out with 3 straight losses against teams that they were big-time underdogs against, that it's not a failure.
No, the season is still an objective success.
Exactly. So that's all I'm saying. This team is better than I expected. They've looked better than I expected. They're still not shooting it well. I think they can win a couple games I didn't expect before the season, but this is not an NCAA tournament team.
No.
From what I've seen, maybe they can fix it, but they just don't have any presence in the interior, and they got dominated on the glass by Drake.
Yeah.
I just want to reemphasize that the free throws are annoying. They got to fix those. The shooting is going to come. It's going to get fixed. The defense has actually looked pretty solid, but the rebounding and the interior defense, you saw a glimpse of what the struggles are going to be the rest of the season against Drake. Unfortunately, it just is what it is. You didn't bring in enough size. You had to overhaul the entire roster, and at the end of the day, you can't live with only having 2 guys that are 6'8" as your posts. You just can't.
And I think, too, going into the season, I think everybody knew looking at the roster construction that the size is going to be an issue. No matter how sexy small ball is nowadays in college basketball, you still need size. Like that'll never change in basketball, college, or the NBA. So I think everybody knew that, but I think you're right in that this was the first game to where it kind of reared its ugly head. And like you said, like that kid isn't like he's a good basketball player. He's a good basketball player, but he's not like one of these dominant 4s or 5s that Vanderbilt's going to see in SEC play. And sort of in terms of everybody else's expectations, like I know we've chit-chatted with a lot of you guys about the expectations. I've always thought if Vanderbilt could go 500 or maybe like a game or 2 under 500, that's a good season for Vanderbilt this year. If somebody is like upset because they like really do expect this team to be like a tournament team,
I don't know what to say.
I'm not dogging on like your basketball intelligence whatsoever. I'm just really like I'm sort of the same way. Like I don't know what to tell you.
This team was never expected to be a tournament team.
They were voted dead last in the SEC media. Now take that what it is. It's media, but still.
I think this team can be better than dead last in the conference. I think the expectations are low, but that also doesn't mean I think they're going to punch their ticket to the big dance either.
No.
So I think that's the reasonable take. I think 95% of Vanderbilt fans fall in that. It's just you see the crazy takes and they stick out in your mind.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of controversy around Byington as the head coach. So you saw a lot of people saying some shit.
Like, this is why we thought he wouldn't work out.
About Byington because they lost to Drake and quote-unquote a bunch of D2 kids. Those are not D2 kids. Those are talented ball players. It is what it is. Drake is a proud program. Vanderbilt's going to be fine. This just isn't going to be some miraculous run of a season.
Yeah.
Maybe. And I hope I'm wrong. I hope they do. And I hope you replay this and it's an old takes exposed. But I just don't see it. I don't see the size.
And just the last thing I'll say is the whole D2 thing. Like, I get where fans are coming from. But, like, let's not forget that for its entire existence, like the D2 pipeline has been the farm system for D1 basketball, football, and baseball. Like, now, are those kids that Vanderbilt saw SEC level competition? No.
Well, no,
they're not. But like, I don't want to act like that Drake team are schlubs. You know what I mean?
Well, they're not schlubs. They're undefeated. But I will say most D2 players are not D1 caliber. But that would be like saying that the current Vanderbilt roster, that because some guys were handpicked coming from New Mexico State, that everybody that's losing. They just lost to a bunch of New Mexico State players. That's not the case. They
Exactly.
cherry-picked
Exactly.
the most talented guys. Then the
Yes.
rest of these guys are D1 basketball players.
Exactly.
Transfers in the guy that dominated them the most from Wyoming.
So
So that's the way it goes. But, yeah, Vanderbilt basketball coming up on the 29th, the Friday after Thanksgiving at 2 p.m. Vanderbilt takes on the Tennessee Tech Golden Eagles at home. I'm sure that game will just be packed to the gills.
I will be there.
Trevor will be there. I will not.
Who will you be cheering for?
I will be cheering for the Vanderbilt Commodores. I don't think it will matter much who I'm cheering for because Tennessee Tech is not good. So.
If Tennessee Tech somehow did pull off the upset, would there be like a little bit of alumni pride? And you're like, yeah, we did that.
Maybe. I don't know. Probably not. I don't care.
Well, dude, they face your Golden Eagles, and then I believe December 21st, they face my Austin Peay Governors.
There we go. They're making the tour around the state.
I know, dude. If only they scheduled Lipscomb.
Well, coming up, Trevor, that's enough basketball hoops talk. Coming up, we have Blake Fromang joining us to discuss football and the gridiron. We also have a special voice message from Boston George. So Boston Barclay. We got a special Twitter DM from him, so grab yourself a cold one. It is now time for the TDR cocktail break. Welcome back into episode 292 of The Door Report, and welcome back from the TDR cocktail break. We have a very, very, very special guest joining us here today. Former Vanderbilt star offensive lineman and tight end Blake Fromang, and allegedly TDR's attorney as well. Blake, thank you for joining me and Trevor here today on episode 292 during Rivalry Week.
Thank you, Mr. Fromang.
Absolutely a pleasure. Alleged attorney. I'm here for you guys. Allegedly, just don't do anything illegal.
Allegedly.
We're
gonna
Allegedly, things, yeah.
Allegedly. But at the beginning, we're going to dive into this LSU recap. We're going to dive into the Tennessee game. We're going to do all of that with Blake.
Mm-hmm.
But first, we have a very special Twitter DM from one of our day one A1s. Boston Barclay, Boston George decided to bless us with a Twitter DM. So we're going to play that right now for you. What is this going to be?
I think George might be with the mob.
Hey guys, George Barclay here. I have a ferocious holiday message for Tennessee football and their fans. First, I'd like to wish the Vols a happy Thanksgiving. I hope you get to eat some dishes you enjoy. I hope you eat some good turkey, gravy, stuffing, or dressing, depending on whether it's inside the turkey, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, Brussels sprouts, cranberry sauce, butternut squash, mac and cheese, rolls, apple pie, pumpkin pie, sweet potatoes, cornbread, candied yams, and ice cream. And I hope it's a good meal, because that's the only good thing happening to you orange and white fuckwads this week. Well, you've been busy bitching about the Elite Eight refs and Zach Edey, bitching about the refs against Georgia, and bitching about the playoff. Notice the theme here, you being bitches. Clark Lee and the boys have been putting in that work. On Saturday, you are fucked. Peyton Manning is not walking through that door. By the way, Peyton teabagged the trainer in 96 and made her sign a non-disclosure agreement. People don't forget, motherfuckers. And T. Martin, your true savior, is not walking through that door. But Diego Pavia is, and he's going to slice and dice your team back to that shithole college town of yours. C.J. Taylor, Langston Patterson, and Brandon Fontenette are going to smother that offense and send Nico running for his fucking life. And Tony Basilio and Will Bowling are going to have to check into the Vanderbilt Medical Center and call the crisis hotline screaming when Clark Lee sends blitz after blitz into that fucking backfield. This is not the same old Vandy. This is not the checkered party that you were used to when you frat house joy boys butt chug together in the parking lot before a blowout. You got dogs all over this roster, and they're ready to put old Smokey out of his misery. Oh, Rocky Top, you'll always be the STD of the SEC. I hate Rocky Top. Woo! Kiss my ass, Tennessee. Doors are coming, baby. Anchor the fuck down. Boston George, out.
Boston George from the top rope, laying the smackdown on the Tennessee Vols.
I had high expectations.
Electric.
Because the message added alongside that was, I went off the deep end, boys. Happy Thanksgiving. So my expectations were through the roof.
Yeah.
He blew him out of the fucking water. What was that?
That'll put some lead in your pencil. My God, my adrenaline's pumping.
That'll put some lead in your pencil. When he dropped fuckwad
Yeah.
within the first 20 seconds, I knew it was going to be a pretty good call.
I got a little tickle in my pants right now.
That's making me want to redo my prediction here. I wish we would have played that right before the Tennessee preview, because now we have to take a step back. And we have to recap the LSU game.
That is correct.
And thankfully, we are joined by offensive line expert Blake Fromang here, because
and tight end expert. Some would say the greatest tight end in Vanderbilt football history.
Some could say that. I
My
think
mom's laughing at this. Y'all chill out with the tight end joke. That's her in the background laughing at you guys.
Blake's mom is currently in the background.
I'm getting cooked, so chill out.
That makes us want to go even harder. Blake, LSU game, 24-17 loss. Vanderbilt did cover. They're 7.5-point underdogs on the road in Baton Rouge inside of Tiger Stadium. Vanderbilt loses 24-17. It really, I will say, felt like LSU, for the most part, dominated that game outside of maybe the first 5 minutes. Vanderbilt dominated, and outside of that, LSU pretty much controlled the pace of play, controlled everything within that game. I don't want to hit on my three keys, because every single time I try to recap a game, I hit on my three keys. I just have written down trenches, because that is what jumped out to me watching on TV. I don't know the intricacies and ins and outs, but on both sides of the ball, Vanderbilt was dominated. Offensive line got dominated, but not quite as bad as the defensive line did. I think Blake had a tweet that he put out during the game and said, well, I don't know what exactly he said, something like spend all of your money on pass rush during the offseason. And I think I agreed with that statement, because it felt like Nussmeier had an eternity inside of the pocket the entire game. Bryce Cowan, I thought, had a hell of a game. But overall, this Vanderbilt team just didn't have it. LSU was better for most of the game. Blake, Trevor, I want to hear your overall thoughts before we get into the nitty-gritty of this one.
Our attorney, I'll give it to you first.
I thought we got a little bit too cute on offense. As I was saying on Twitter, run the ball up the middle. I watched some film on LSU. I liked our matchups inside, and we kept trying to do everything but that. And then to start off the second half, we started running the ball up the middle, and we had some success. So I was screaming at my TV a little bit, like, the look is there, do that. But that was frustrating. And then our defensive line we could not get home on any of the sacks and on any sort of pass rush at all. I wish we mixed it up a little bit more in terms of twist games, but yeah, we got to get a freak on the end. I mean, we got to at least have one guy they got to really game plan for and send a running back or tight end help to. And we just, like, Sidnor's incredible. Like, he's good, but we need that next step of a guy to be able to get home and be a passer at every game. And we just didn't have that game.
Yeah, I agree. I think what sucks too is I think Zaylen Wood, from what you saw early in the season, could have been such a huge catalyst to this defensive front. I think my key takeaway from the game is I was very frustrated on the defensive aspect of the ball. Is, like you said, Nussmeier had ages to throw the ball, and Vanderbilt just kept dropping 7, bringing 4 to the quarterback. And I was getting frustrated, because if a quarterback has all day long in the pocket, you could have Darrell Rivas back there, but the wide receiver is just eventually going to get open. So I got frustrated, and I was like, man, Clark, like, bring some pressure, bring 5 or 6 guys. And if they beat you over the top, then, I mean, man, so be it. And I just didn't see that, but that's Clark. I don't know why I'm acting surprised. Like, that's Clark Lee's MO. He's very open. He's very honest. He's like, I bring 4, I drop 7. I bring 3, I drop 8. Like, that's how he wants to play ball. It's just frustrating whenever a guy can just sit back there and pick his nose all game long.
Yeah, and I mean, the stats play that out. I mean, Nussmeier sat back there, picked his nose, and picked his spots to throw the football. Garrett Nussmeier, 28 of 37 for 332 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks. Running the football, LSU had quite a bit of success as a team. There were 29 carries for 142 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4.9 yards per carry. They had 2 running backs with 14 carries each. Josh Williams, 14 carries for 90 yards. Caden Durham, 14 carries for 58 yards. Kyron Lacey on the outside was one of their 2 most dangerous threats, 6 catches for 85 yards and a touchdown. Aaron Anderson, number 1, also created some problems for the Vanderbilt defense, 6 catches for 65 yards. On the LSU defensive side of things, as a team, LSU only had 1 recorded sack in the box score. However, they got a lot of pressure in the backfield, disrupted a lot of what Vanderbilt wanted to do on offense, even if that didn't show up in the sack numbers for them. They were very, very disruptive. Vanderbilt's defense as a whole on the Vanderbilt side of things had 1 sack as well from Wataha. Leading tacklers for Vanderbilt, Langston Patterson had 13 total tackles, Randon Fontenette with 10, Durkee Wright with 6, Longwell and Demarion Thomas with 6 total tackles as well. Wataha had a pretty good game, 1.5 tackles for loss overall. Moving on to the Vanderbilt offensive side of things, Diego Pavia, I don't know if struggled is the right word, but a majority of these stats that I'm about to read were from the first play of the game. We're from a 70-yard touchdown to Quincy Skinner Jr. down the sideline. Diego Pavia, even including that touchdown throw, was 13 of 24 for 186 yards and 1 touchdown. He was also Vanderbilt's leading rusher, 6 carries for 43 yards and a touchdown, with a majority of those yards as well coming on 1 specific run. Cedric Alexander, 9 carries for 24 yards. AJ Newberry, 3 carries for 22 yards. Overall, the stats say Vanderbilt didn't struggle to run the football. 24 carries for 122 yards, 5.1 yards per carry. Anybody that watched that game, Vanderbilt struggled to run the football. Vanderbilt could not consistently open up holes. I think Blake hit on it, and his immediate takeaways was they kind of went away from running the ball in the interior. And when they tried to, they just couldn't open up holes consistently, or they just didn't do it consistently enough. They had a little bit of success, but this then seemed to quickly go away from it. So on the receiving end, Quincy Skinner Jr. led the team in receiving, 3 catches, 72 yards, and a touchdown. Loic Fungi came up with some big catches throughout that game, 3 catches, 55 yards. Junior Sherrill, 3 catches, 40 yards. Stowers, once again, just being taken away by defenses week after week, 2 catches, 11 yards. Cedric Alexander, 1 catch, 5 yards. And Richie Hoskins, 1 catch for 3 yards. And just to recap, this loss moves Vanderbilt to 6-5 on the season, 3-4 in the SEC. So we have our 3 key takeaways to get to. Is there anything on the stats outside of the one thing I forgot to read? Time of possession. We talk about it on every single episode. Vanderbilt lost time of possession again, and they lost the game. LSU had the ball for 34 minutes, 43 seconds. Vanderbilt, 25 minutes, 17 seconds. So now that I've ran through the stats, is there anything that jumps out to you guys, or you just want to get to the 3 key takeaways?
Nothing jumps out to me.
In terms of the time of possession, we started passing the ball a lot on earlier downs, and a lot of them were incomplete. So that completely takes us out of what we're trying to do, stops the clock, and then we're 3rd and long, and that didn't work out, and we punt it. And that's why we're losing the time of possession battle, is because, it looks to me like Beck's getting away from the early runs to throwing the ball a lot more on earlier downs, and it's just not working out. And I think that's led to a lot of problems in the LSU game, as they got away from the run game way too quick.
And I think there's been an emphasis on it. I didn't do key plays this time, but there was 1 key penalty called late in the game that I think is stuck in the craw of Vanderbilt fans before we get to the 3 key takeaways, and that's the delay of game on the defense on CJ Taylor for simulating the snap count by clapping to encourage his defense on a very key 3rd down. So regardless, Vanderbilt had not stopped LSU's offense on 3rd down most of the game. LSU was 8 of 13 on 3rd down. So likely Vanderbilt wasn't going to stop them. A field goal would have ended the game regardless, but still, the referees took that out of the hands of the players on the field and basically just handed the game to LSU at the end with, I understand what that rule is, simulating the clap snap count. I understand why you don't want players to do that, but seriously, calling that on a safety 12 yards from the line of scrimmage when he is clearly clapping in an encouragement to his defense. There was no way that he was attempting to simulate that snap count. Blake, you've actually been on the offensive line. Was that penalty as bullshit as I thought it was live?
Yeah, I mean, let's take it another step further. That was horseshit. I mean, that penalty was terrible. I nothing surprises me anymore. We get the worst calls every year at the worst time. So I don't know. It's just another one to put in the grievances that we've had with bad calls over the years. But my God, that was bad. He clapped a little bit from 12 yards back and they threw a flag on him.
That felt like they were looking to call something.
Yeah, it's like, can you even hear that if you're the center?
There's no way. And then the announcers also, even the announcers were like, what the hell is this? And even Jordan Rogers, who despises Vanderbilt, I think, from how he announces the games, even he was like, what in the world was that? So I don't know. I don't know what's going on. At the same time, I didn't get as irate as I otherwise would because the Vanderbilt defense continuously let me down on third down throughout the game. Let's go ahead and get to our 3 key takeaways. Blake, do you have 3 key takeaways written down, ready to go?
No, but I'll fire off the hip here.
All right, Blake will. Oh, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. One.
Oh, he's off the hip, he's going.
Yeah, 1 is quit going to the pass so early on if you're back. 2 is you need to have some sort of twist game or blitzes in the defense. We definitely need some nuance in the pass rush. And 3 is how about Brock Taylor, baby? Rocket launcher comes through every single week, and that's right off the hip. So there you go.
Rocket launcher. I think currently Vanderbilt special teams, I don't know what metric was being used, but they're like ranked number 1 in the country in special teams efficiency or something along those lines, including a fake punt that was successful in the LSU game.
Shout out Mercaset.
Oh, yeah, Mercaset. Yeah.
Mercaset.
Merc 30.
So there have been a lot. There have been some things that have been concerning the last couple weeks. Some things since the Alabama game that have been concerning. One of those has not been special teams. Special teams have been consistently very good throughout this entire season. So Blake just rattled off his 3. So we can go back and forth on ours really quick.
I will ask Blake one quick question before we start. You mentioned on the defensive front twists. Is that just synonymous with a stunt, or what exactly is a twist?
Yeah, so twist game is when the defensive end and the interior lineman, what you'll normally see is the defensive interior lineman will slant outside and hit the tackle, and the defensive end will come inside on top. It's like
I know what that is.
Yeah, the defensive end will come over the top and inside. So it mixes up offensive line with their calls and how if you don't switch it and communicate it right, it creates pressure. It's a good way to, mix it up from the straight rush to make sure, you can get some sacks on that sometimes just because there's bad communication. It's just a way to mix up the pass rush.
Mason did that a ton with
Dio.
Yes.
So I'm going to go ahead and get my first one out there because Blake, I'm going to add on what Blake just said onto mine because I agree they need to adjust it this season. There's still 1 regular season game and a bowl game left. Let's work on and do what we can do this season to fix the pass rush. But I already talked about it since we started this recap. Number 1 takeaway is simply they just have to pull out the full bag this offseason and get some damn pass rush. Corday Sidnor, he's solid. Sidner needs to be the secondary pass rusher. If he was a guy that other teams didn't have to focus on and you had a legit guy, I'm not saying him in this caliber necessarily, but like a Kyle Kennard. If you had a guy like that on the other end, Sidnor's numbers would skyrocket. So they just have to go out and get somebody that has a proven track record of getting to the quarterback because I understand what you're saying about you can't just drop 7. You have to send some extra blitzes. They tried occasionally. I just think right now Vanderbilt just doesn't have the athletes on the outside to match up without numbers in the secondary. I think you saw it when I'm forgetting his name now, but number 1 from LSU was isolated on the outside on some of those wide receiver screens, the different RPOs. One-on-one, Vanderbilt still just doesn't have the athletes to match up with 5 and 4 stars consistently. Yeah. They have some individual guys that can. The roster has improved. But you just have to be able to get pass rush with your front 4. And that's kind of the base. Every other SEC team, for the most part, outside of maybe Mississippi State, has been able to do that. That's Vanderbilt's number 1 deficiency. The numbers look like the secondary is horrendous and the pass coverage is horrendous. It's hard to evaluate them because anybody that has watched Vanderbilt play knows they just need more pass rush in that front four. So that's a very long-winded way of saying I 100% agree with what you said, Blake. So that's my key takeaway number one.
Yeah, my key takeaway number one is I think Pavia's we know that he's banged up, but I'm going to take it a step further, and I think he's probably injured. The way that Vanderbilt has not utilized his legs in the run game, I think is one of the reasons why Vanderbilt's offense has not been so efficient, because we talked about it while we were watching the game with your dad. Whenever Vanderbilt was winning those first few games, they were running the hell out of Pavia. Probably a little bit too much. Like we can say that, especially in those like non-con games. But man, they were running the hell. He was running 15, 20 times a ball game, and he's just not doing that now. And I don't think it's because he doesn't want to. I'm worried that he can't. I think it was a little bit reassuring that he did rip off that big run against LSU. That was awesome to see. That put a little bit of a spark into the Vanderbilt offense. But if this Vanderbilt offense is going to perform the way that we've seen them perform early in the season, I think you're going to have to utilize Diego Pavia's legs. And I'm worried that he just doesn't have that ability right now.
Well, I think you're reading off of my keys, because my key number two is this team is still beat up.
Yeah.
I'm glad you talked about specifically how much more Pavia was running at the beginning of the season. I don't think it's just Pavia that's beat up, but I think he's the perfect example of where a lot of guys are right now. I mean, go back to the Virginia Tech game. Diego Pavia, 26 carries for 104 yards. Go back to the Alabama game, 20 carries for 56 yards. Then you go to that LSU game, 6 carries. Clearly, Pavia's hurt. I don't even think it's a question at this point. He is hurt. This entire team is still beat up. They're thin. The roster is better. They still don't have the depth. So when you get to this part of the season, you were in the heart of it. You're at the tail end now. When you get through the SEC gauntlet, you have to have those key depth pieces. Vanderbilt just hasn't been able to rotate. And honestly, just having a quarterback that runs the style of offense that Vanderbilt is running, you're not going to have a quarterback ever make it through a season healthy if Vanderbilt wants to keep running their quarterback 26 times at the beginning of the season. So something has to be adjusted, or Vanderbilt's never going to have a healthy quarterback ever again. So Tim Beck needs to adjust. It's why that style of offense has not been used in the SEC. It's the exact reason, because it's a little different going through New Mexico State's schedule for 12 games running a triple option than it is Vanderbilt's schedule. So, yeah, this team is just not healthy. I don't think they're going to get more healthy before the Tennessee game, and that's a lot of what is going to influence my preview and prediction of the Tennessee game. So that's my key number two. They're beat up. This team's just beat up.
Yeah. My key takeaway number two is I don't know, and it's not like I have access to all 22 footage to where like we can like dissect this or ask somebody else. I don't know what's happened to Eli Stowers and his utilization. My guess is that the defense, and the obvious answer is the defense is just locked down and in their scouting report said this guy is a dangerous weapon. He is the main weapon in terms of the passing game. We need to lock him down. But then that brings up other questions. I don't know why the tight ends overall, like they didn't get utilized at all in this game. And I think this has sort of been a storyline throughout the season, is Vanderbilt has really talented tight ends. And if I was Tim Beck, then again, I'm not an offensive coordinator, but if I was Tim Beck, I would spam the hell out of Eli Stowers, Cole Spence. Like I would get those guys easy targets and let them get some yak. And you didn't see that in the LSU game. And if the downfield pass isn't working and they're locking up Junior and Quincy, then I feel like it's an easy safety route for Diego Pavia, especially whenever there's pressure in his face. Utilize those tight ends, and they just didn't do it this game. And so that's a little bit frustrating for me in terms of the offensive game plan.
Yeah, and my key takeaway number three will be really quick because I want to get to this Tennessee preview. It's what I said earlier, when we were talking about basketball. I've written down, don't let these last two games and this upcoming game cloud what has been an incredible season. I don't think things need to be shifted. I think we need to shift our frame back to where Vanderbilt football was before the beginning of the season. The over-under on this team was 2.5 wins. Even the highest expectations of Vanderbilt fans, outside of Blake Fromang on this episode, outside of Blake, were about 5-7. I think that was like my dream, was this team getting to 5-7 with how difficult the schedule has been. just because they exceeded expectations early, that doesn't take away from what they've done this season. If they do end up dropping 3 straight to close out the season, this has been an incredible season. So I just have to get a positive out there, because my first 2 have been pretty heavy criticisms.
Yeah, that's in. Will's changing the wet blanket Will narrative. Will's just like, I'm just a reasonable guy here. My key takeaway number 3, and it's not a big one, but it's something that I was pleasantly surprised to see. I don't think Clark Lee's ever done this. I don't think Derek Mason ever did it. The fake punt. Your back was against the wall. You knew you needed a spark, and a fake punt on your own side of the field on 4th and long. Shout out to Clark Lee. Shout out to Shane Gallant for being like, hey, our back's against the wall. We need a spark. Could it blow up in our face? Yeah, but we're playing with house money. Did it change the course of the game? No, but I appreciate whenever coaches are aggressive like that. Of course, it backfires sometimes, but I don't know. I really like that playing with house money mentality.
I loved that call. Vanderbilt needed it at the time of that game. I love the aggression. Clark Lee has gotten a little less conservative this season overall.
Yes.
But I'm ready to get Blake back included, because he's been sitting there just staring at us while we ran through our 3 keys, because Blake shot a quick load there with his 3 keys. No pause.
Jesus Christ.
Let's get to this rivalry.
What did he say?
It happens to the best of us.
It happens to the best of us.
Sometimes you just get excited.
It's called passion.
It's a compliment more than anything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Need to clip this. Clip that chat so we can
We're
send
so
it out later.
sorry to Blake Fromang's parents.
All right. Getting to the Vanderbilt Tennessee preview. It's rivalry week in college football. Enough about blowing loads.
Oh,
all right.
God. Oh, God.
Last year.
You got my mom laughing in the background. My God.
Hell yeah. All right. So this
perfect. A 5-game losing streak, correct, to the Tennessee Volunteers.
Well, not technically, because that 2020 game is void. So.
Whatever. It's been since 2018 since Vanderbilt has beaten Tennessee. Way too long. Last year, Vanderbilt got dominated, lost 48-24, just like Vanderbilt got dominated by every SEC team they played. This season is a different story. Tennessee is better. Vanderbilt is better. This is an elevated level of game. This is an 11 a.m. kick on ABC. Horrible kick if you're attending this game in person. We will be out in Lot 2, tailgating, starting at 7 a.m. at the latest. I will be out there earlier than that.
I'll probably be out there about 5:30.
Yeah, but stop out in Lot 2. We will be tailgating. We got chicken minis from Chick-fil-A.
Yeah.
We got biscuits. We'll have beer. We'll have mimosas. We'll be going out there. But horrible kick for the best Vanderbilt-Tennessee matchup that we have had in years.
Oh, yes.
So the time slots were set before the season. There's nothing you can do about that. But on a positive side, because I've given plenty of negatives on this, Vanderbilt is a national broadcast on ABC.
Yeah.
So that is a big deal, getting some more eyes on them. Vanderbilt has opened up, I believe, is a 10.5-point underdog.
It's shrinking.
It's shrinking. I think it might have been 11.5 to start, but Vanderbilt is an underdog. Blake, Trevor, a lot to say about this Tennessee team. I think most Vanderbilt fans have watched Tennessee play. I won't read off stats. I want to hear your guys' takes on where this Tennessee team sits. I think they are number 8.
Number 8 as of tonight.
Number 8 currently in the country, sitting at 9-2. This game is basically a win and you're in game for the college football playoff for the Tennessee Volunteers. Vanderbilt can play spoiler. So Blake, I'll go to you first. How are you feeling about this game overall?
Good. I'm going to take a moment in vain for a second, and I want to speak to the offensive linemen if you bother to listen. Gunnar Hansen, Stephen Hubbard, Xavier Castillo, Lasoya, and Chase Mitchell, and Kibo Wesley as you get into the mix as well.
Charlie Clark.
And Charlie Clark, too. Shout out all of them. Gentlemen, this game starts and stops with you guys. I'm going to quote my old offensive line coach, Herb Hand. It's time to drop your nuts. It's time to lock in. And it's time to get after some ass. You guys decide how this game goes. And I'll tell you, I know you guys go by a different name. When I was an offensive lineman there, we were the Band of Brothers. And I'll tell you, as the Band of Brothers, every season we had this game circled on our calendar. And damn it, we were going down to the wire every single time. Every ounce of everything you had left at the end of the season went into this shit. So every single rep, we need to see it. I know that Hanson's been there and Castillo's been there, and this is different for Lasoya and Mitchell and Hubbard, but you guys need to understand, I'm 30 years old. I hate Tennessee. Every single year when I think about this game, there is malice, there's spite, and there's vitriol in my heart. And I hate Orange. I hate UT. And you need to do everything you can to put everyone else and let everyone else shine off your backs, because it starts and stops with you. So damn it, get into it, lock in, and let's fucking go.
Woo!
They got any extra fucking shoulder pads laying around, buddy?
Dude, I'm gonna put this helmet on right now and get in a 3-point stance.
I'm ready to run an Oklahoma drill and get my fucking block knocked off right now. I'll tell you that. Trevor, we'll go to you. I don't even know if you can follow that up. I'm going to go to some stats here and let that rest, because that's like following a stand-up comedian who just killed.
I just straight mainlined speed.
That was pure adrenaline. Vanderbilt, I imagine. So we can actually see on YouTube when people go back and listen to one part over and over.
That'll be one.
I guarantee there will be a spike right there in that rant, Blake.
That's just for the big boys. That's not about views or anything.
Hey, it's not
big guys up front, listen to this, rally upon it, and let's get after some ass.
Let's get after some ass, baby. Going into the stats, because Trevor needs a little air to breathe in between that.
I'd put in a fresh in.
A couple shocking things, because everybody knows I'm a numbers and stats guy.
Hey, both of us, dude.
Yeah, you're right.
What do you know about that power and generalizability?
But one of my favorite websites, so this is all according to teamrankings.com. They do an incredible job and have an incredible format of comparing two teams of an upcoming matchup. One of the things that shocked me the most, I've watched a lot of Tennessee. They run the ball a lot more this year than they have. You think of Tennessee as a passing offense under Josh Heupel. You think of spread it out, hurry up. That is what they do. They spread it out, and they play at an incredibly fast pace. But Tennessee throws the ball less than Vanderbilt as a percentage of their plays. That was one of the most surprising things evaluating this game. Tennessee runs the football over 60% of the time. 14th most in the country. Tennessee only throws the ball 121st most in the country. Vanderbilt only throws the ball 41.75% of the time, but they rank 110th in the country. So the idea that a lot of Vanderbilt fans have, and a lot of fans across the country have, of Tennessee is that they're an air it out, almost a unique offense, but almost a variation of like an air raid.
Yeah.
That's not at all what they are. Dylan Sampson is the engine of that offense. It starts and stops with Sampson, not with Nico, with Sampson. Now I say that, and my keys are not going to align with that, because I think Nico is what loses them games. I think regardless, Sampson is going to get his, but you can force mistakes into a freshman quarterback.
Yeah.
And Nico Iamaleava, I'm going to butcher that. I'm not going to say it again. But the offense is what gets attention. It's a unique scheme. But Tennessee's defense is what is so much better this year. Specifically their run defense. Tennessee's run defense is top 5 in the country. They're giving up 2.8 yards per attempt against opponents. So this pass rush they have, they're sacking opponents on 7.5% of dropbacks. That's 38th in the country. This Tennessee defense is what scares me more than their offense does. Yeah. And I think going into the season, I knew their defense would be good. I didn't think that I would be saying their defense is what concerns me more than their offense. So that's some quick stats. Trevor, what's your overall feeling going into this game?
My overall feeling, and here we go, Sunshine Pumper, I think it's a rivalry game. Anything can happen in rivalry games. That's why rivalry week is so beautiful. But I agree with everything you said. I think Dylan Sampson is the engine that sort of pushes Tennessee forward, and they have an elite defense. James Pierce is arguably the best pass rusher in America. McCoy at cornerback has been locked down for Tennessee this year. Their linebackers are a little really banged up, but that front and that secondary that Tennessee has is really, really, really good. And so if Vanderbilt wants to win this game, Tim Beck is going to have to be creative. They're going to have to be fresh, and they're going to have to be firing on all cylinders. And that's something we haven't seen it recently, but we have seen it this year. And I'll be damned if I ever doubt a Diego Pavia-led Vanderbilt offense. So there is hope for this Vanderbilt team, but it's like you said, I think you gotta sell out the run, as crazy as that sounds.
It is rivalry week. Anything can happen. That being said, this is a nightmare matchup, just objectively evaluating. The only reason I'm not just absolute nightmare wet blanket Will is because it is rivalry week. Damn it, I hate that fucking color. And I think that no matter what, Diego Pavia in a rivalry game, you have a puncher's chance.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and get to our 3 keys. Blake, you can do them one at a time. If you don't have them ready, me and Trevor can start on this side. Just let us know how you want to begin.
So I first want to begin with something Pat and Robinette told me. Because I reached out to the general today and I said, what do you think about this Tennessee game? And he said, only thing close to a Vandy win in my book is a UTK loss. Best week of the year. Let's keep them out of the playoff. Can't spell Outback without UT. Outback Bowl, baby. No playoffs. That's my key number 1 is Pat Robinette. Let's go.
Let's go.
Salute the general.
Nothing.
Salute the general. Nothing but respect for my General Patton.
Nothing but respect for General Patton. I'll go ahead and get my first key. That was beautiful. Hard to follow that up. So
Hard to follow the general.
I'll take the brunt. Mine is easy. It's what we talked about evaluating the LSU game. You have to disrupt Nico. Pass rush has to get there. You can't send extra pressure against this Tennessee offense or you're going to get burned deep. The front 4 has to get there. So for Vanderbilt to have a chance, they have to look like a completely different defensive line against Tennessee. I don't know if that's what Blake said with more twists. I don't know if that's stunts on the inside. I don't know. Maybe they do have to send more pressure, but you have to disrupt Nico's timing in this offense, and they hurry it up.
Yeah.
So you better have that game plan tight because you're not going to be able to signal from the sideline. That's even more specifically why I say the front 4 has to disrupt their timing.
Yeah.
And if Vanderbilt doesn't do that, then this is going to be a bloodbath. So that's my key number 1. You have to disrupt Nico. And he can be disrupted. Yeah. He's not infallible. If you've watched Tennessee, Nico is the weak point of this team.
Yeah.
For sure. Very talented, but he's young.
And I'm going to piggyback off your key number 1 with a little twist, though. My key number 1 is that Vanderbilt is going to have to win in early down situations. If you can keep Tennessee behind the chains, and if you can limit Samson to 2 yards, 3 yards a carry on first down, keep them behind the chains, keep them at 2nd and long, 3rd and long. That's going to increase your chances of making them punt, of making them turn the ball over, give it back to you, and thus that is going to give Vanderbilt a better time of possession than Tennessee. If they run that hurry up and you keep them behind the chains, that's going to be like what a minute 20 drive, 45-second drive sometimes, and that's going to bode well for Vanderbilt to grind this game out. So that's my key number 1 is win early down situations, and that's going to be winning early down situations in the run game because they're going to try and run it early.
I like that. Blake, what do you got for number 2?
Second celebrity comment from Will Holden, NFL player, teammate of mine, good friend of mine.
Holding it down.
He said, our DBs need to get through blocks and wrap up this week. We need to tackle. So celebrity pick number 2, DBs, linebackers need to tackle.
I 100% agree. And if
if
there was one thing that I could add to my 3 key takeaways from the LSU game, it was going to be tackle, tackle, tackle. And I know it's not that simple. It's more of an athlete problem. But at the same time, you just got to hit them. You just got to wrap up and tackle. Because I don't even think beginning of the season that you saw these issues, but the last couple weeks, there have been tackling problems. I think a lot of it has to do with fatigue because it's not like these guys all of a sudden got scared of contact. I think the legs are tired at this point. I don't think they have the rotational depth of most SEC teams, but I'm very glad you brought up the tackling, Blake. My key number 2 is going to be win the red zone. Another interesting stat when I was evaluating Vanderbilt in Tennessee. Vanderbilt right now, I brought it up last week, scoring on over 90% of their red zone opportunities, whether that's field goals or touchdowns. Vanderbilt ranks number 18 in the country in red zone scoring percentage. Tennessee, on the other hand, only scores on 78% of their red zone visits, ranking 108th in the country. So Vanderbilt, if they're going to have a chance on top of getting pressure on Nico and disrupting them, when Vanderbilt gets opportunities in the red zone, they need to capitalize. And when Tennessee gets to the red zone, Vanderbilt needs to force them into field goal attempts that can be missed. So Vanderbilt needs to win the red zone is my key number 2.
Once again, Will with the stats, great key to victory. My key number 2, the Langston Patterson and the linebackers are going to have to probably have their best game of the year. I think with the motions and the way that Tennessee spreads their formation and how spread out they are, I mean, they're sideline to sideline. That's going to put a lot of strain on the defensive backs, and that's going to create a lot of mismatches. And typically what Tennessee does when they do that is the middle of the field is wide open. So Langston Patterson, Brian Longwell, Prince Colley, Nick Rinaldi are going to have to be really, really, really good in the pass coverage aspect. If they can be and serviceable, it seems like a slight, but and I don't mean it like that, but if they can be serviceable in pass coverage, then I think that bodes really well for Vanderbilt, and I think that gives Vanderbilt the upper hand. Because I think Martell Height and Jalen Lackey are really, really, really good defensive backs. But Tennessee goes up against really good defensive backs every weekend and normally wins those matchups, not because of it's an athlete thing, but it's because of a scheme thing. Like Tennessee's wide receivers are very middle of the pack SEC. Like, and I will stand by that. Like Brew McCoy, very middle of the road wide receiver pack for Tennessee this year. So I like our DBs and I like our secondary in that, but just the scheme, the formation, I mean, it's tough as hell to defend. So I think the linebackers and pass coverage are going to have to really pick up a brunt of the load.
I mean, yeah, these wide receivers are not Jalen Hyatt and Cedric Tillman.
No,
they're just not.
No.
So it's a little bit less talented of a receiving core. I think they have a more talent, maybe the most talented quarterback they have had since Heupel has been there. And I say that because he is a freshman. He's not the best right now, but maybe the most talented. His ceiling is the highest. Hendon Hooker was, I don't want to say underappreciated because Vol fans did appreciate him and they do now. I don't think Tennessee fans really absorbed how good Hendon Hooker was until they saw Joe Milton operate the offense, until they've seen Nico operate the offense. They're realizing now how damn good Hendon Hooker was. So that's a good key takeaway or key to the game number 2. Blake, what do you got for number 3?
I called out the offensive line. It's time to call out the other side of the big boys on the defensive line. I want 3 sacks. After last game, I doubted you. Everyone's been doubting you. We have not gotten pressure. Prove us wrong. Put what we said on a bulletin board or whatever you got to do of us saying we need to get people in the transfer portal or whatever. Take that as motivation and get after some ass. This freshman quarterback you got to make his life hell. You have to do it. We had at least 3 sacks. I'd be happy with 2, but 3 sacks. Prove me wrong. Please, God, prove me wrong. The thing I'd be most thankful for on Thanksgiving is to prove me wrong. So please, God, defensive line, if you haven't heard it enough, hear it from me, put me on a bulletin board, prove me wrong. Get after it. Let's get 3 sacks, and I think we'll be straight.
I'm asking the same thing.
I'm asking the same.
I'm glad you added a number to what my key to the game number 1 was. 3 sacks. I like that. Minimum 3 sacks. My key number 3 is going to be establish the run. It's what Vanderbilt did early in the season. It's what they haven't been able to do pretty much after the Alabama game. Even though they've won games against Kentucky, against Auburn, they haven't really been able to establish the run consistently. So I always use time of possession and turnover battle. That's basically what establish the run is. If Vanderbilt can establish the run, they'll win the time of possession battle. That's not what Tennessee is focused on at all. At all. Tennessee's offense is on and off the field like that. You cannot allow this Vanderbilt defense to get tired. So you have to pick up first downs running the football. Vanderbilt, you're going to have to throw it. Tennessee's going to be focused on your run game, but you have to run it against them even though they know what you're going to do. And Blake, I think that goes back to your initial call out of the offensive line. So you have to establish the run. If Vanderbilt averages like 3 yards a carry, they're going to get blown out of the water. Yeah. So you have to be able to run in the interior, even though this Tennessee defensive front is very talented and throughout the whole year is giving up 2.8 yards per carry. You have to do better than that if you're going to beat this team.
Yeah. My key number 3, you got to give Diego Pavia easy passes because what we've seen the past couple of weeks is that pass rushers are basically pinning their ears back and trying to kill him for all intents and purposes. And so Vanderbilt can't have these long developing RPOs. Like I get RPO is the bread and butter of this offense, but like you can't have these deep 15, 20-yard route trees. You got to give him something easy. You got to give him something simple. Get the ball out of his hand quickly. And that's where I think the tight ends come into play. I think this could be a big game for Eli Stowers. I think this could be a big game for Cole Spence. Utilize those guys. Dink and dunk down the field, man. Just pick up a flow and just grind it out. And I think a short passing game could do that. Then whenever Tennessee gets aggressive, they're going to bring those safeties down. They're going to play closer to the line. You have an opportunity to blow it over the top. So I think it's going to be a big game for the tight ends. Just give Diego Pavia easy passes.
Give Diego Pavia easy passes. Me, Trevor, and Blake have all given our 3 keys to the game. Blake, I think you know where I'm going next. We have predictions to get to. So any final notes you want to add on here, and then we can get to our predictions for the Vanderbilt-Tennessee game, the last matchup of the regular season for 2024. Sadly, football season, college football season, is coming to an end before our eyes. So, Blake, let's hear it. Prediction time. What do you got?
General Patton and I are on the same page. We got 30-27 Doors.
Doors all day.
Doors all
day, baby.
Not only that, from our attorney, Blake Fromang, and the general, Patton Robinette.
If the general says it.
Is Patton?
He said it. He said it. He texted me. And let me tell you this, because y'all need to hate Tennessee as much as I do. First question I asked my wife on our date, I said, did you go to Tennessee? She said no. When I mean the amount of relief I had in my heart knowing that she didn't go there, I told her after we got married, I said, if you would have said yes to that, we wouldn't be married. I hate them. Y'all need to hate them. America needs to hate them. Get behind it. Cheer for the Doors. 30-27 Doors. General Patton, surgeon, Duke graduate, went to Vanderbilt Med School, smarter than everyone. He's, he knows ball. Quarterback, stamped it. 30-27 Doors. Let's get behind it.
East Tennessee, Maryville legend, the general Patton Robinette. I sort of agree with you that I think this could go really, 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 really poorly for Vanderbilt. But there's something in me that will not let me go. I see it in your face, Will. There's something in me that says a cold 11 a.m. kick, sleepy construction zone, First Bank Stadium. Tennessee thinks they have it in the bag. They're ready to go to the playoff, playing against little measly old 6-5 Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt does the damn thing. We are going to rush the field. We are going to beat Tennessee. And by God, if when we rush the field, if I die, carry me and the goalpost to the Cumberland River. Tell my mom I died doing what I love. And when they fish the goalpost out of the river, tell them to leave my body in there so that the fish may feast on my flesh. It was always the Doors. Doors break the streak. Doors keep the balls out of the playoffs. Doors win 31-27. Victory in Nashville. Diego Pavia, build the statue. It was always the Doors. Doors on top till I die. Last time we had Blake on the pod, it was to preview Vodtech. And what did Vanderbilt do? Vanderbilt beat a team that everybody thought they would lose to, and the spread was bigger. Vanderbilt is going to get it done. Doors on top. I'll be out there 5:30. Beers will be cracked. Vol fans, I'm not locked in there with you. You're locked in there with me. Doors on top.
Doors on top. Trevor, Blake, everything that you just said, Trevor. 11 a.m. kick, sleepy. It's going to be cold. First real cold game of the year overall. Everything about it. I think Vanderbilt has a real shot. Different than I would have evaluated this game 7 weeks ago. I think Vanderbilt has a real chance. Tennessee doesn't look quite as efficient as I thought they would continue to look. Vanderbilt is struggling, but has looked a little more effective. All that said, I don't see it. I want to predict a win so bad. I hate that fucking orange. I do. But I have to take a step back and evaluate games how I evaluate games. everything about this is a nightmare for Vanderbilt. The scheme, the pass rush Tennessee brings, Nico getting into rhythm against Vanderbilt's lack of pass rush. I think this could go much worse than what my prediction is going to be. I can very easily see this being an absolute disaster for the Vanderbilt Commodores. But I'm going to go Tennessee 31, Vanderbilt 17. I don't think it's ever really a question. I think it feels a lot like that LSU South Carolina game had a baby. I think Tennessee relatively dominates it, but I think Vanderbilt, because it is a rivalry week game, keeps it a little closer, a little longer than it otherwise would. Please, as you said, Blake, I will be so thankful if they put me up on a billboard and prove me wrong. But I'm going to go Tennessee 31, Vanderbilt 17. Trevor is going Vanderbilt 31, Tennessee 17.
27.
Oh, Vanderbilt 31, Tennessee 27. Blake and General Patton are going Vanderbilt 30, Tennessee 27. So I am the lone wet blanket. Once again, I hate myself, and it is my fault.
You know what they said during the Revolutionary War? They said the Americans had no shot. You know what they said whenever Russia invaded Afghanistan? They said the Afghans have no shot.
It's a tough one.
You know what they said whenever David went up against Goliath? Weak little old King David. He has no shot. Underdoors. It was always the underdoors.
It was always the underdoors.
I feel it in the air.
Trevor, Blake, anything you guys want to add on here on episode 292 before we close it out?
I just think you're wrong. We have a surgeon who went to Vanderbilt Med School and graduated from Duke saying 30-27. I know you know spreadsheets and Microsoft Excel and all that fun stuff. We have a surgeon saying that we're winning 30-27. You know what? We don't need a second opinion. Let's listen to Pat and Robinette's diagnosis. He's diagnosing a Doors W. If you don't like it, Will, too bad. I'm sorry. We're coming at you. As Trevor said, underdog Doors. We're going to win. You know what? It's time. You said we wouldn't beat Virginia Tech. You said we'd go 3 and whatever. I'm sorry. It's closer to what Sunshine Fromang said with an 8-4 season. We're right there. With us winning this game and the bowl game, we have 8 wins. So you know what, Will? It's time to believe. And if you're in lot 2, like I hope you're in lot 2, take a stiff shot of some whiskey. Maker's Mark. I like this stuff. Take it.
Good
Get
stuff.
some liquid courage and time to bet on the Doors. It's time. Get behind the boys.
Blake, my prediction was 31-17, Tennessee to win. Don't worry. Money's on the Doors. That's my brain prediction. My heart sees a Vanderbilt victory. And I will be in lot 2. I will be taking some stiff drinks. But, Patton's a lot smarter than me. And definitely has had less concussions than me. So I do want to say that we probably should go with Patton's diagnosis. And I want my diagnosis to be completely incorrect.
Yeah.
So I don't like my prediction, but my prediction is what it is. I have to take off the gold-colored glasses sometimes and just pick games how I would pick them if I didn't hate orange and love gold. So, Trevor, Blake, you already shit on my pick. Trevor, you got anything else you want to say?
Fuck Tennessee! Fuck Phil Fulmer! He's a backstabbing son of a bitch! To Johnny Majors, good man Johnny Majors! Fuck Josh Heupel! Go Doors!
Backstabbing son of a bitch. For myself, Will Byrum, my co-host, Trevor Hulan, and our alleged attorney and very special guest, Blake Fromang. This has been episode 292 of The Door Report, powered by 615 Collectibles.